Earlier this month, a federal judge blocked the construction of energy giant TransCanada's Keystone XL pipeline. The 1,200-mile-long pipeline was designed to transport natural gas from Alberta, Canada's tar sands into the U.S. In Maryland, environmental advocates are protesting another TransCanada pipeline that would move gas from Pennsylvania to West Virginia.
No Potomac pipeline! No Potomac pipeline!
Armed with a petition signed by nearly 9,000 people, dozens of environmental advocates rallied at the National Park Service's Chesapeake and Ohio Canal headquarters. They demanded that the NPS deny TransCanada a right-of-way permit and thereby halt the construction of the Eastern Panhandle Expansion Project, also known as the Potomac Pipeline.
Here in Washington County and in Berkeley County, nearly 100,000 residents would have their water impacted and contaminated if a blowout were to occur. Scientists around the world have said we have 12 years to drastically change our ways, and now is not the time to be putting more fossil fuel infrastructure in that'll lock us in for decades of fracked gas use. It also harms our neighbors in Pennsylvania and West Virginia.
We also have the very, very real risk of the drilling encountering a void under the Potomac River, which then you would lose millions of gallons of drilling mud into a void that could potentially contaminate the Potomac River for a very long time, and that cannot be mitigated.
The pipeline would be built beneath the C&O Canal, near Maryland's Pennsylvania and West Virginia borders. TransCanada says the pipeline would be safe and environmentally friendly.
HDD is a trenchless method of installing pipelines underneath water bodies, roads, railways, buildings, and other structures. It is an environmentally friendly method used to cross sensitive areas that significantly reduces impact to the land above the drilling site and surrounding communities.
But critics say it's dangerous because it could explode and because despite safeguards, it will inevitably leak methane, which is a leading contributor to climate change. If it leaks, they say it will also affect a major water source.
Yes, the technology might be very safe in certain circumstances, but with man-made issues and decisions and engineering and pushing the limits, there's a number of risks that could be had.
Natural gas is also harmful to people's health. And of course, an explosion, well, that could just outright kill people in the course of the accident.
Under the C&O Canal, the pipeline would go through soluble rock, or karst geology, which the environmentalists say make it more prone to leaks.
You think of it as the Swiss cheese of geology. It allows contaminants both on the ground and in the ground to flow very fast and very quickly.
The Potomac Pipeline would also be the energy source for the controversial Rockwool USA insulation manufacturing plant in Jefferson County, West Virginia, which protesters also say could have devastating health and environmental impact.
Rockwool would be a highly polluting facility that would put formaldehyde, bisphenol, particulate matter, benzene, and all manner of other cancer-causing substances into the air.
We reached out to Rockwool for comment, and they said there's a crucial distinction between emissions from the chimney stacks and the concentrations of those emissions at ground level. While of course related, it is the latter that determines the health and environmental impact in the area, but the former that project opponents focus on. This fight comes just weeks after the re-election of Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, who signed a fracking ban in 2017, but has backed the construction of the Potomac Pipeline, which will ship fracked gas.
Hogan did sign that frack ban, but somehow he's not appropriately opposed to the gas industry like he should be.
The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection have already approved the construction of the Potomac Pipeline, and in West Virginia, construction has already begun. But the protesters say they'll continue to fight.
The FERC has approved it, but the FERC approves all pipelines. The West Virginia DEP has approved most of the pipeline, but not the section that would go, the final section that would go to Rockwool. We will fight this at the DEP and the Public Service Commission to keep the tail end of the pipeline, the final leg of the pipeline, from going through to Rockwool. We will fight till the end.
Here in Maryland, we're going to take our fight to Annapolis and make sure that things like this don't happen.
We reached out to TransCanada for response, but didn't receive it by time of publishing. For The Real News, Tharna Noor in Hagerstown, Maryland.